What's up, everybody? It's George Gabriel, and this is Scoring Tips, how to approach a scoring gig. So in part 2 of this series, I talked about temp score madness and how to combat the fact that they've fallen in love with what I call demo fever with the temp score. In part 3, we're going to talk about how to spot the film. In other words, where you would think where you start and finish cues based upon what you're seeing when you watch the film. Let's take a look. Okay, it's fair to say that the producer might want to be involved in spotting the movie. In fact, it might be something that you sit down together and spot the movie together and go, this is where a cue should start and this is where a cue should stop. And they'll have an opinion on that. But more often I find that a lot of producers want you to use your instincts on where you would start and stop a cue. And most movies and shows that I do, I spot myself. Now, I typically spot a movie. I don't typically spot episodic. Episodic, I just kind of hit the ground running and I spot on the fly. There's not enough time to sit and go like, there should be a cue here, there shouldn't be a cue here. It's really, you get the show and you start scoring. With a movie, it's a different story because it's a lot more weight behind a movie. It takes longer for the movie to be made. There's a lot more backstory to the movie, and often there's a lot of opinions on how a scene should be played. That said, we'll be looking at a movie I just recently did and how I spotted the movie and how I use the tools and logic to actually export that information into an Excel sheet and then actually create a spotting sheet. Let's take a look. Okay, here is the session that I actually spotted this movie, and you can see on the top there are a bunch of little green areas where there's some notes in there. And basically how I spotted this movie was, let me just zoom in a little bit, is I started from the very beginning of the film and I just started watching the film. And you can see there's some cuts here. And basically what I did was I just pressed play, and you can see the burnt in window time code, and you can see the rest of it's blurred out because it's not released yet and it shouldn't be seen. But what I would do is watch the film and go, okay, this is the opening scene, it's an action scene, it's a long scene, and therefore I think there should be music throughout. And so I watched it, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to go all the way to this area where I think the cue should get out. A lot of action here, so therefore it was a large cue. And you can see how large it was. It was 6 minutes and 14 seconds. Basically, when I zoom in, if I use the Option key, I can zoom way in. And I made a little cut here. And this is where the cue goes out. In Logic, what you can do is you just selected this region. This is where the cue is going to live. And right now what you're seeing is just the dialogue. So how you make this a cue that you're going to notate what you're going to do there is under the Navigate screen, you can go to under Create Marker, you can see there's Other, and you can create marker for selected regions. So when I do this, it's going to kind of bump this out here. It creates a region. And when I go to my list editor and I click on it, it's made that little region here. Now I'm going to delete this because I already had a region actually, and I'm going to show you what the original region looked like. And you can see here, if I select this opening cue, I can make some notes here. And down here, I said opening cue, weaves in and out, drama Sicario meets Rage Against the Machine. So that was, based upon the director's notes and exactly what they were looking for. But I also just made my own notes on that. And then as I progressed, I would continue to hit play and okay, we're out. But then I think another cue should start here. So what I did was I actually cut this, and there's a couple ways you can do it. You can use your scissors tool, or in my case, I have a key command that does that. And I made the next cue, which was cutting in and out. And you'll notice there's no region here because there's no music here. But for this, I did the same thing. Navigate, Other, Create Marker for selected regions. And that was my next note, which I decided was going to be a note that I said brooding eerie into heavy action and then back into eerie, cue till black. So I'm making notes here and I'm weaving in and out of this. Now, when I'm done with this whole film and I go through all these things, and I'm also making some other notes like, hey, here's a song, or here is a source cue. So we'll get into that in a second. But basically, when I'm done with this entire list, I'm going to view this list as time code. And now you can see I have the start time position and I have the length of the cue, which helps me understand how many minutes of music I need to write for this movie, and it gives me some notes. Now, what I do here is I take all this information and I select it all and I copy it just by using Command C to copy. And now I'm going to go into an Excel sheet and actually paste that information in. So let's take a look at that. All right, this was the end result. And actually, if I just were to scroll over here and just paste this so you can see what happens when you do paste it, it actually brings that information nicely in. So you have your time code start, you have the notes that you made on that, and then you have the length of the cue. Now, if I scroll back, you can see I did some formulas here on time code start, total time of the cue, that's coming from the original, and then I did some mid calculations to actually give me what I have over here, which is the cue number 1, cue start, cue end. It did a calculation. Basically, you have to convert all this into hours, minutes, and seconds. It's kind of complicated, but once you get it down, it gives you exactly what you need to do to actually make a proper spotting sheet. And so from the original, I added in the cue number. The cue start is actually converted from this time code start, and where I actually made a calculation. And again, it's kind of complicated. You gotta go in and out, and I should probably do a whole video on just that. But basically, at the end of the day, I'm able to look at the cue description, the total time, and then these were more calculations that I made to actually get the figures that I wanted. I know it seems like there's a lot of stuff here, but again, I'll make another video on this at some point where I actually talk about those calculations, because it is, or maybe I'll make a template for you and that you could just download that and do it, use those calculations. But at the end of the day, what I'm getting is the cue number, the cue start, the cue end, and the description. And really, this is the information I really want to use to make my spotting sheet. Now, you'll notice I also did some color coding here. There are some songs in the film, so I color coded where their songs were, so I knew where I needed to. And you can see I weave in and out of this one song. It's song 1, and there's a reprise of the song, or reprise, depending on which way you want to use that word. And there is a part where I go in and out of another cue. There's like this moment where he has a flashback, and so I go into that. The other thing that these producers are not necessarily thinking of, and some will and some won't, depends on how much experience they have or how much idea they have behind this film, is the source cue. So for instance, in this first source cue, they're in a phone store where the guy's going to go buy a phone. And basically there's no background music. So I thought, well, really you need some sort of, like, what store do you go into that there's no music? So I figured there really needs to be a source cue here. Later on, they're in a bar and there needs to be some bar music. And then it's back to the bar music later on. And then a DJ starts a track. So all that stuff needs to be created if it's not already there, which it wasn't in this film. And so basically I went down this entire list, and you can see I kind of restarted the headers mostly for printing. And that way I can, when I go to print this, I had it so it would be exactly what I want to on this spotting sheet. And what was helpful for me too was like, hey, I need to score 56 cues, and there's 3 songs, and there's 10 source cues, a total of 69 cues, and a total music time of 79 minutes and 29 seconds. So this really gives me a good understanding of what it is that I have to do, how long it's going to take me to actually score this. And let me show you the end result of that I gave the client. So this culminated into this nice little PDF where we could go over the cues. And I put the total time and everything like that. And it was a nice little way to actually go over the movie with the producer and director and be like, okay, this is what I'm thinking. And then I made notes on this just in pencil as we met. And this kind of gave me the springboard that I needed to start scoring this film. So spotting a movie is really an important part of this because, number one, it gives you the number of cues that you have to do. It kind of makes you understand like, oh, this is the workload. I got 80 minutes of music to do, and I've got 2 weeks to do it, so I better get working. It also gives you the dialogue that you need to have with the director or the producer to make sure that they understand what you're thinking, and also things that they may not have thought of, like, hey, we really need source cues in these, and like, okay. And source cues can be songs, so you might have some friends that need to get some songs in the movies, so like, or you might have some songs of your own, like, hey, I got this song that'd be perfect for this, and you can throw that song in there, kind of retain the publishing and do that, put yourself out there in a totally different way, and it gives you more opportunities to get your music in different ways onto this film. So hopefully this video has been eye-opening to you on how you can spot a film and how you can get all the information that you need in order for you to do a proper score for this and really let you know what your workload is. In part 4, it's where the rubber hits the road, and it's building the band. What are you going to do? What's the instrumentations? What are the things that you're going to be building? What's the guitar parts? What are the orchestral parts? Whatever it is that you're going to be doing, what's the sound design stuff? Whatever it is that you need to build that band to start making the sound of that film happen. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to this channel. Click the bell icon to be notified of future videos, and comment, is this information helpful? How do you spot something when you're doing a film or an episodic? I'd like to know. And I'll see you on part 4 of this series, and until then, this is George Gabriel Music.